Hey everyone, today we're going to be talking about your UCAS personal statement. I applied to universities in the UK through UCAS. You can apply to 5 universities in total, and I applied to UCL, Durham, King's, Sheffield, and St. Andrews. And I got unconditional offers from all of them except Sheffield. An unconditional offer means that if you accept, you have a pretty much guaranteed spot, and then a conditional offer means that you might need to meet like a couple more requirements until you're offered like an official place. I am going to UCL. I know in a previous video I said I was going to Durham, which was honestly where I thought I was going to go. Thought it over and I got into UCL and I thought about living in London. I kind of changed my mind, which is okay to do. I thought I would kind of run down what my personal statement was and I was going to read it out loud to you. I had to do a lot of research because I didn't know anything about UCAS and there wasn't really that many people that could help me. Your personal essay should focus on your degree and why you want to study that degree. Your job is to convince the admissions that you are passionate about this subject and that you're going to do well learning about it for the next 3 years. Your personal statement for UCAS is different from your personal essay for the Common App. Personal statement for UCAS is going to be a lot more academic focused. You're going to have to cite some text probably in it. And before I wrote mine, I definitely looked at a lot of examples online, found that they all kind of follow a similar format: introduction, and then paragraphs about classes or how your classes helped you, how an internship contributes to your study or your love of the field, and then at the end like a short little thing about your extracurriculars. You don't have space on your application to put in extracurricular information. If you want to put it in, you have to cram it in your essay. You have 47 lines or 4,000 characters, and mine came to about exactly a page. Here is the beaut. It's actually quite short when you think about it, but it took me quite a long time to write this, like a month or two. So if you want to apply to Oxford or Cambridge, your deadline is going to be earlier, so just keep that in mind when you're writing this. I kind of regret not applying to Cambridge or Oxford, but oh well, I'm happy with where I'm going. The bond I developed with history stems from an imagination cultivated by my ambiguous origins. Okay, the first sentence is kind of important because you want to, capture your reader, try to get down the direction that I was going in while sounding kind of intelligent. Adopted from a Beihai Chinese orphanage at a young age, my prologue was a blank page I occupied with mythology and stories of the past. Rather than feeling frustrated by my unknown biological ancestry, my history felt limitless. There was no precedent for who I should be. History was not simply an interest, but a multicultural epic of identities I used to understand myself and my place in our present day. So in my intro, you can kind of see that I'm setting up a little bit of my backstory, a little bit about who I am, building that personal connection to my degree and why it's important to me and kind of the origins of that importance. Everyone's are going to be different. It doesn't have to be like a super monumental big thing. It could be a book you read, an artifact that maybe your grandparents passed down to you that kind of like sparked that interest. I was adopted during China's one-child policy. In AP Human Geography, we discussed Mao's autocratic regime and analyzed China's population pyramids and the consequences of female infanticide and antinatalist policies. These policies and the emphasis on men as carriers of a family's legacy led to China's present imbalanced sex ratio and impacted my life and tens of thousands of other Chinese girls who were illegally given up for adoption. These roots led me to seek opposition to the devaluation of women and the oppressive nature of branding them as inconsequential. I wanted to show the specific periods of history that I have interests in. Here I'm kind of saying I want to find examples in history of how women are powerful and how they actually leave like a huge impact beyond just like, the basis. Of course we are, it's like common sense. AP World History nurtured my fascination with Japan's development during their isolation period. Capital Edo became male-dominated during the mandatory alternative attendance system, leading to the formation of pleasure quarters known as the floating world. I was keen to research if women in these quarters gained some semblance of independence, if prostitution was inadvertently autonomous. However, Downer, in Women of the Pleasure Quarters, argues women were indentured to brothel owners. Only the teiyu, the highest status of prostitute, could reject customers, making her increasingly unattainable and thus expensive. Though far from self-agency, these courtesans' indelible influence on Edo's cultural foundations as muses for the arts are illustrated in yukai, prince and yukai zoshi genre literature. This is when I kind of deep dive more into the really academic part, quote a couple of texts, and assert my own opinions. In that paragraph, I'm kind of showing the admissions a period of history that I'm interested in and that I've taken an outside interest and I've done my own research. Women of the Pleasure Quarters was a book, but there was this huge long article about it and excerpts from the book I found from the New York Times. I kind of just read that. It was was like 50 pages. You don't have to cite just books. You can cite articles too. You're probably not going to want to like hear this, but there's a good chance you'll be doing a lot of research that won't make it into the final cut, and that's okay. It'll add to just your like general knowledge, and like it'll make your sentences like more concrete, more substantial, knowing all this. You're not going to be able to cite every single thing that you've read. They don't want to see like just a list of books. In opposition to the promiscuous femininity of Edo courtesans, I found promises of feminism in Adrienne Meyer's The Amazons. It is this book. I didn't read it just for this. I already read it. You don't have to like go out and buy a bunch of books for this. If you've already read something that you really like, talk about that. But then at the same time, if you're interested in something and you haven't read about it that much, but you do want to talk about it, I suggest like reading a couple articles or just finding credible things that you'll be able to source. Growing up, I idolized the Amazon warriors' embodiment of ferocity and felt cheated discovering they were figments of the Greek imagination. The novel addresses the blurry lines of truth amongst myth. The Amazons were likely based on Scythian tribes, whose nomadic lifestyle permitted shared gender roles. Besides evidence of female bones in Scythian kurgans buried with weapons, I found the inclusion of Herodotus's rendition of the Amazons' origins also convincing that this group was based in reality. I agree with Meyer. The Greeks focused on the female aspect of these ethnic groups due to the startling contrast to the limited existence of women in their own society. So this, I'm kind of continuing on the fact that like, I'm academic, I like history, I read this book, this is what I think about this book. You don't want to like restate the book because the people reading these are supposed to be experts in their field who already know this, so they don't really want you to just regurgitate information. I was a little bit iffy about parts of this where I was like, am I just retelling what this book is about? But I think kind of at the end how I told like my own opinion on things probably made that a little better. Adhering to traditional gender norms, the Edo courtesans represent a feminine mold, while the Amazons a masculine. In terms of socio-political power, the Amazons were leagues ahead of the courtesans. Upon enrolling in a community college sociology course, I found these separate entities reflective of the modern social climate. Early female empowerment in the media rejected femininity or more masculine attributes in an attempt to show strength. Presently, the pendulum of gender norms is closer to a balanced center. A woman can be both feminine and masculine without misogynistic attitudes labeling those traits as her entire identity. There, I kind of just tried to say the Amazons fit this mold and the courtesans fit this mold. And I was kind of trying to bring like things back to how I said in my intro paragraph, I'm interested in finding my place in present day. I tried to bring the history that I had researched to the present day. As editor-in-chief of my school's literary magazine and an officer in the National English Honor Society, I improved my literary analysis through student-led seminars. As president of Rho Kappa, I gained a community of peers who valued social studies. Working part-time, I saved money to visit my former exchange sister in Europe, where I was exposed to landmarks the relatively young United States could not provide. My travels reaffirmed that the UK as a center of rich history would be an optimal location to study. And then my last sentence, trying to really snatch everything and pull it together. I wish to pursue a degree in history to explore stories from our past and understand their impressions on our world today. This is something I noticed in every single essay that I read. I want to pursue this degree, and then an ending sentence. I want to pursue medicine because I want to help people. Like, I don't know, that's just a bad example, but like stuff like that. It was very different from what I was taught in school, that you want to end the last sentence on something really impactful, profound. This is more of just like a restatement, something that could even be put in the intro paragraph, but this is just what I noticed everyone else doing, so I was just like, okay, I'll do this too. I'm an international student, I'm from the United States. This is why I want to study in the UK, because you guys have some old shit. While you do want to insert your extracurriculars, or maybe some of the positions that you have within your school, you need to connect everything back to your degree. If you're part of the recycling club and you're going to go for history, maybe you want to try connecting that, but in the end, because you have a character limit, you might just want to exclude that, and I know that might be hard. Thankfully, most of the clubs that I did, I could just connect pretty easily. You're gonna have to just think about how valuable you think that experience was for you and how much it can connect to your major, because if it doesn't, don't include it. You want to start this as soon as you can. I was someone who did not start this as soon as I could. I procrastinated because I was so scared of this essay, of applying to university. I held off. I did research, I took lots of notes, and I do think that was really helpful in the long run because when I got time to actually writing my essay, I wrote like most of it in one night, and then after that it was mostly just revising. But I would suggest starting soon so you're not stressed about it and you can apply early. It's rolling admissions, so the sooner you apply, theoretically, the sooner you'll hear back. I am an outline person. I outlined everything that I wanted to talk about. I wrote down all the books that I might want to talk about, jotted down classes, clubs, themes. It's important, I think, to have a running theme. I had this huge notes sheet. Then I would take the time to sit down and really try to write as much as you can. It's better to write more and then cut back on it. Something that I struggled with a lot was the fact that all the videos that I was watching, everyone was saying how they had like 6, like 10 revisions, 10 drafts, and they kept going back and redrafting, and that what they had at the end was not what they had at the beginning. And I think that really stressed me out because I was very happy with the first draft that I wrote, and I was like, I don't know how many like more drafts I'm gonna have. Is that bad? Am I not doing something right? All I can say, this might be frustrating, but just trust the process. I did really like my first draft, and I basically kept my paragraph about the Edo courtesans and the Amazons relatively the same. There were some edits to really just like tighten up the structure, but those main points remained the same. A lot ended up changing after I had a teacher who I trusted read it. And like when I mean trust, I mean yes, trust because like you're giving them this piece of you that you're writing to try to be accepted, but also trust like academically that they're gonna do a good job revising it for you. After I had people look at it, friends, family, it's up to you how many people you want to look at it. Take everyone's opinion with a grain of salt. Everyone's going to have a different opinion. Some people are gonna like some lines, other people are gonna like other lines. It's just how it is. In the end, it's really up to you. Basically, after I talked with this teacher, I revised the structure a bit. I revised my themes a bit because I had 2 themes going and that was kind of just too much, so I cut back on that. I was worried that that would pigeonhole me as like only worried about one thing, but in the end, I think it definitely helped with the clarity. Also, for the whole revision process, I would suggest saving one person who's only going to read the very, very final draft. Never seen it before, never read it before, because they're gonna give you a clear, unbiased perspective on what it's like to read it for the first time. If you're kind of going through the editing process with someone and you know what they mean because they've been talking to you about it the whole time, when you read the final draft, like you're gonna be like, oh yeah, of course I know what this is about. But someone who's never read it before will have a different perspective, and it's helpful to save one person for that. I would say while you do want to sound intelligent and you do want to sound like you have a decent vocabulary, you do not need to look up synonyms for every single word. I did not go and like look up extremely difficult words to just sound smart because I think they'll see right through that, and I think it's important for you to come across as yourself. Probably easy to tell if someone is being genuine or not. I know when I was writing mine, I scoured YouTube for anyone who would read their personal statement just to get more ideas going. So I hope that this helped you and maybe gave you a little bit more confidence moving forward. And if you haven't started and you need to start, do it now. You will thank yourself. This is your sign to start now. I hope this video was helpful. I wish you all luck in the application process. Bye.
Hey, you better know what you're doing. You're risking Private's community college fund.
I'll never be president.
Side note, I will link some of the websites that I use, some of the essays that I read. Good luck, guys.